We are 22S Radio. 22S Radio is 22smedia.com and 88.1 FM, KKJZ, HD3, Long Beach, Los Angeles.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, and now, our broadcasting tag team champions of the world and a cruiserweight champion.
I'm Ethan.
I'm James.
I'm Rob.
And this is episode 116 of Beyond the Ropes. We are BTR Pro Wrestling Talk, a show where we talk all things sports entertainment. We give predictions, we give reviews, and we talk about rumors and so on and so forth. You can follow us on Twitter at EthanNB95,
At JW Reporter,
and Rob
Flores Media.
And of course, Real BTR Radio. We are also on Facebook, facebook.com/Beyond the Ropes, where we post videos of every episode as well as predictions and so on. You can also find us on YouTube. Just search up Beyond the Ropes and you will find all 115 episodes uploaded currently. So Rob's been doing a great job getting every episode uploaded the night of, so that's really good. Exciting stuff. We've had a busy week in terms of content. I know we don't really talk about SmackDown, so we'll just kind of mention that there is an Intercontinental Championship match happening a little bit later. By the time this goes up, it will have already happened. But from what I've heard, it's going to be a stellar match, like a can't-miss match. So it's going to happen between Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles to determine the new Intercontinental Champion. This Sunday also is Backlash, so that should be a fun event. A few big matches are happening there, and we'll get to predictions in a little bit. But let's talk about the event that happened this past Sunday. I'm talking about NXT TakeOver In Your House. The first In Your House event in, 2 decades at least?
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it was been before the year 2000, so been 2 decades now. They had the old school set with the house and everything, the door, and that was really a neat touch. We had an intro video from Todd Pettingill, the original, I guess. He was like the host, right, of In Your House?
Yeah, more so, and he was kind of like the hype man back in the day, always trying to sell you something with the 1-800 number before the WWE shop website and stuff, trying to get you to buy the shirts, trying to get you hooked up with all the merchandise before, during, and after the show.
Yeah, and he absolutely did that because there were a number of retro-style commercials sprinkled throughout, including Adam Cole in an amazing Ico Pro commercial. He did it better than Bret Hart, and he did it better than anyone else could. It was fantastic. I did send you that picture of
yes, you did.
Side by side. So kind of mimicking that. There was like an ice cream bar commercial featuring the NXT superstars.
I think there's a few of them, actually.
There was a couple, yeah.
Yeah.
William Regal did his best, what is it? The Lord Alfred impression.
Lord Alfred.
Yeah. So that was a nice touch. The show opened up with the band Code Orange performing the theme song for the event, which is a nice way to open the show. And then we had a 6-woman tag team match between Tegan Nox, Shotzi Blackheart, and Mia Yim taking on the team of Dakota Kai, Raquel Gonzalez, and Candice LeRae. Fun little match here. Ultimately, Yim and LeRae obviously feuding with one another. It led to a brawl backstage, and it led to Tegan Nox hitting the shiniest wizard on Dakota Kai to get the victory for her team. Then we had a follow-up. Well, before we get to that, I think Rob was the only one that got that one right, I believe.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, so Rob got the first fall in this predictions.
See.
We had Finn Balor taking on Damian Priest, and what many are saying was a star-making performance for Damian Priest, and I would agree with that. They were going back and forth here, and they both looked amazing. Finn Balor's putting on his best matches in his WWE career here, and Damian Priest probably put on his best match ever, at least in WWE. So ultimately, Balor ended up taking a victory after hitting the double stomp to the back, as well as hitting the coup de grace to get the 1-2-3. And I believe I was the one to get the points for this match because you both chose Damian Priest. Any thoughts on this match?
No, kind of the same things that you said. It was kind of a star-breaking or a star-making performance, more or less, for Priest, who I believe has automatically, as they jumped into something with Cameron Grimes next, I think. But yeah, him and Balor went back and forth. Balor's a good worker and can work with anybody, but it'll be good to see where Priest goes going forward, and also to see what happens with Balor going forward.
Yeah, they definitely teased a lot of stuff on this week's episode of NXT.
Yes, they did.
For contenders and such, and we'll get into that in a bit. But it was a good match. So both got spotlighted quite well. Next match was probably one of the favorite matches for a number of people. It was for the NXT North American Championship as Keith Lee defended against Johnny Gargano. I believe I got this one wrong. I think both of you guys chose Keith Lee, correct?
Yeah, of course.
And he got the victory after a long back and forth contest. I like Gargano's entrance as he entered through the door, and he kind of they kind of showed him in the house and turning the thermostat and everything. That was a nice little touch. They also used the Nest Cam in front of the door when Gargano was like trying to escape or whatever. So it kind of shows like the outside, like an intruder trying to break in or something. It's a nice little touch there. Gargano was working some ligaments and body parts to try and get one over on Lee. He used the key that he used last week on Keith Lee's right eye this time because he had been working on the left eye. And unfortunately for him, it did not pan out that way. Keith Lee ultimately hit a spirit bomb and then a big bang catastrophe to retain the championship.
Yeah, I think a nice little touch using the house key for the in your house event. But I mean, you got to be careful with spots like that, mainly because it's kind of like you put a key in anybody's eye, even if it's just the eyelid. 1, I would cry. 2, I would not continue the match. 3, my career would probably be over. Just saying.
Well, that's you, James.
But that's the difference between me and Keith Lee. That's for sure.
I guess so, yeah. Next up was the last chance match for the Velveteen Dream. And my guy, the one and only, Adam Cole Bay did it again. He defended the NXT Championship in a backlot brawl against the Velveteen Dream. They both came out in very fancy cars. Adam Cole came out in a huge monster truck with the Undisputed Era logo and flags around the truck. And then Velveteen came out in I believe it was a Lamborghini, a yellow one, and came out dressed like Negan from The Walking Dead. He had a bat and he had the jacket, and he was mimicking his gestures and motions. So that was an interesting entrance.
Are we not tired of the monster truck gimmick though?
I mean, it wasn't like a monster truck match or anything.
No, I'm just saying, like there's so many of these entrances that have to do with trucks and stuff. Am I wrong about this?
It was unexpected. I don't have an issue with it. It's not like they themed it.
No. What I'm saying is, like, didn't Becky Lynch have a truck? Didn't
she did
someone else have a truck?
They probably just repainted her truck and
probably yes.
So it probably reused. So I don't think they went out of the way for it.
Yeah, I mean, it is probably the same truck at this point, but
I didn't have an issue with it. I mean, I thought it was different, so that was a neat touch. The cars didn't really play a huge factor until the psychotic Dexter Lumis came in and he kidnapped 2/4 of the Undisputed Era. This was a traumatizing moment, not only for them, for me. I was terrified. Poor Kyle O'Reilly had to put out a a wanted notice on social media to find his friends. Luckily, we did find them safe 12 hours later, so that they were good. But they were a little freaked out, especially poor Roddy.
And where were they found at? Or what was the...
Well, Roddy woke up in his laundry room. So yeah, exactly. I don't know what happened. A psychopath needs to be arrested or something, but we'll get to that a little bit later as we talk about NXT. But as I mentioned, Adam Cole ultimately won the match, hitting a what is it, the Panama City Sunrise, so which is like a destroyer type move, and got the victory. And so Velveteen Dream can no longer compete for the NXT title as long as Adam Cole is champion, and Adam Cole's going to keep the title forever. So,
well, we'll see about that.
No, I don't know. We all predicted this one as Karrion Kross took on Tommaso Ciampa in, I believe, a 6-minute match, which was total decimation. Kross ended up making Ciampa pass out with the cross jacket submission. And it was hard hitting. Ciampa got a few moves in, but ultimately Karrion Kross was too much to handle. And, I mean, absolutely destroyed Ciampa to win this match.
Mm-hmm.
And in the main event, we had a triple threat match for the NXT Women's Championship as Charlotte Flair defended against Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley. And this was a phenomenal match from top to bottom. I believe I predicted Charlotte to retain, and you both predicted Rhea. A few weeks ago, I had said that I wanted Io Shirai to come out as champion. And I'm disappointed I didn't stick with her because she did. She ended up winning the NXT Women's Championship finally, and a huge celebration. A number of her peers and coworkers, acknowledged it on social media.
I think even Charlotte, and I don't know if Rhea said anything, but I think even Charlotte said something.
Charlotte gave credit for sure.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it was a nice moment for Io. She did a dive off the roof of the set, which was awesome. A number of big moves hit throughout this match from all three competitors. Ultimately, Flair had Rhea in the figure 8 submission, or figure 4. I don't know if it was fully a figure 8 yet, but Io then hit a moonsault, which looked very nasty because she landed on Rhea's head. Actually, she landed on her body. Nonetheless, if someone lands on your head, you're probably going to get knocked out anyways. So it was enough to get the job done and capture that title. Overall, a fantastic event. I believe Triple H even said that they would probably continue doing in-your-house themed takeovers down the line. So that's exciting stuff because I really like the theming. So great show.
I do too, and we'll see. I mean, I think if you put a little, I mean, it would probably work a little better. Maybe maybe on an NXT, maybe in the Performance Center. How they have, where they're not having to carry this equipment across the country from place to place, from the warehouse to in Ohio or to California or something like that. But when you have these themed pay-per-views, I mean, you see, you think of some of the other ones like a Taboo Tuesday, or I think it was a Cyber Tuesday, whatever it was.
Taboo Tuesday.
Cyber Sunday, Taboo Tuesday. Those were very themed pay-per-views. And they actually, the stage was set for those. If you look at WCW's Bash in the Beach, which I don't think would be kind of hard to pull off, but I know that's kind of an AEW thing now, I guess. Having the in your house is a good step towards hopefully maybe getting some more variety on the set and the stage, and especially because it's such a small venue, you really get to see that house front and center because I believe when they did have in your house pay-per-views or stadium or the Canadian Stampede match, all those entrances were the ramp was straight, but then they kind of went off to the side. So from what I remember, so they weren't very in front of the hard cam the way this was. So it's kind of nice. You kind of saw it. You knew it was an in your house pay-per-view.
Yeah, without a doubt. Speaking of In Your House, apparently there was a heated discussion that happened at In Your House with one WWE Hall of Famer, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. So apparently the report says the legendary pro wrestler was discussing the current social climate with another producer. This is when the other producer mentioned that everyone already gets treated the same, which is a very controversial thing to say, especially today. It was noted that that the statement didn't go over well with HBK, who proceeded to break down the systematic prejudice and inequality to the person. He did so in a very heated discussion. Apparently, the argument made its way back to multiple wrestlers the following day. However, it was said that Michaels was to be very professional and worked with the person even after the argument went down. Who was this producer trying to get in an argument with Shawn Michaels?
There's two people who could probably come to mind here. Not confirmed or anything, so it's just kind of a guess. Some people were kind of throwing out Michael Hayes as an option. Just because I think he may have had the Confederate flag as part of his gimmick back in the day.
Oh, maybe.
I think.
Maybe.
But I'll save that what I was about to say for Michael Hayes in a minute. But I think the other one might have been the Road Dogg, who I didn't know for the longest time. I think he has a Confederate flag tattooed on the back of his head.
Was it on his head? I know he has a tattoo on his head. I don't know if it was a flag or not.
I think it was a flag because it was something kind of wild that I didn't expect. I'm thinking it's a Confederate flag. I might be wrong about that. Maybe it's not. Don't hold me to that.
Interesting. We'll look that up.
But because I knew, well, anyway, so the point I'm making is between those two guys, I mean, that's kind of who people are thinking it is. But I mean, both those guys have worked with African Americans before and you know, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I wouldn't go out and say that they're racist, but obviously by the statement that they made, where everyone is treated equally, they maybe are a little blind to the situation, whoever it may have been, whether it's Hayes, the Road Dogg, or someone else. But I think this is, you know, Shawn Michaels is Shawn Michaels, and everyone has heard all the bad stuff about him and this and that, and the way he was early on in his career. So this is probably one of the more positive things that have come from this. And if I'm not mistaken, Shawn Michaels is not with an African-American woman, right?
No.
I know Bret Hart is, but I wasn't sure if Shawn Michaels was. I thought he might have been. No, because he's with the Nitro girl, I think.
Yes.
So okay. So never mind. So it makes it even. I think it makes it even better that not better, but I think it's. I know it's kind of hard to say because it's kind of like in terms of the way we are going to be viewing HBK going forward or anything like that, or based on what we knew in the past. But I think it shows maturity, obviously, with age for HBK for sure, and that he can have discussions like that. And then when you hear the word "still be professional" after, tells you a lot about the maturity of HBK over the years. So.
Absolutely. And when we return, we're going to discuss someone who is unfortunately no longer booking Monday Night Raw. All that and more right here on Beyond the Ropes. And we're back with episode 116 of Beyond the Ropes. I'm Ethan.
I'm James.
Bob.
And as always, you can follow us on social media at EthanNV95.
At JHW Reporter.
Flores Media.
And Real BTR Radio on Twitter. Facebook.com/Beyond the Ropes, where we post every episode, and YouTube, just search up Beyond the Ropes. Well, we got a bit of news yesterday, Thursday. Mm-hmm. Apparently, Paul Heyman has been replaced as the executive director of Monday Night Raw by now I guess, unified writing staff under the supervision of one Bruce Pritchard. So this came after frustration with the declining ratings of Monday Night Raw, which have sunk below 2 million. SmackDown has maintained an average of around 2 million, so they've had higher ratings than most Monday Night Raws since the pandemic started. It was also noted that SmackDown was seen as more of a show that Vince McMahon liked and more with his creative vision. Um, According to WrestleVotes, reported on Twitter that Raw has been more of a mess lately, at times where changes were made to the show, and for instance, some WWE.com previews would promote some matches or something or segments, and those segments would not end up happening anymore because they switched them out. So apparently, WWE announced that creative teams for Raw and SmackDown would be consolidated, and Bruce Pritchard would be in charge of creative for both, while Heyman would remain as an on-air character, most likely when Brock Lesnar returns. So, big news. We did, find out, what was it last? I guess it was already earlier this year or late last year. Eric Bischoff was the original executive director for SmackDown for a brief time. Obviously, he was replaced by Bruce Pritchard, and now Paul Heyman is one also has been replaced by Pritchard. So Vince has his guys that he likes. So Pritchard's one of those. One of those guys.
Yeah, I mean, Bruce has been a right-hand man for Vince for many, many years. I mean, he was away from the company from some time, and there was one point that you thought Bruce was never going to come back, but now here he is, and he's running both shows more or less. I think when you talk about the ratings for WWE, and it's more so with Raw, it's a 3-hour show. No one sits through a 3-hour show. Let alone when there was a crowd, it was just kind of hard to take everything in on TV with commercials and everything. But especially when you look at now during this the pandemic, you say they have segments that go on, and then things change, things happen. That's going to happen from time to time. But I think too, it doesn't make it any easier when you do have someone like Paul Heyman, who did lose a Becky Lynch. If I'm not mistaken, right? Becky was on Raw.
Yes.
Becky, and then Charlotte was away. Charlotte is back. Well, she's on every show now, but
she's gonna win the Universal title now.
Why not? But yeah, no. I mean, it's just kind of tough for Paul Heyman. And Paul Heyman was running the, he was on the show, but then he was still appearing with Brock when Brock was around and whatnot. So it's kind of tough times. And then especially too when you consider all the people who left, or they're taking an absence or whatever. It's just kind of tough, as it is. So good to see Heyman will be staying on. That did stand out as well, that he's still going to be there as an in-ring performer. He's going to focus on his in-ring role. Maybe that can mean something more, but at the very least, we know that's kind of whenever Brock's around. So maybe that means we'll get more Brock here in the near future. If not, what are you doing with Heyman? But if you're keeping him around, that means you're going to be doing something with him. So yeah, I mean, Bruce Pritchard running both shows isn't horrible. I think it's only temporary because, again, you look at Bischoff, you look at Heyman. How are you going to have Bruce Pritchard be in charge of Raw and then try and maintain some stability with SmackDown? So I think that's going to be a little bit tough. Huh?
Is he going to get fired in a few weeks too?
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you. But at the same time, you look at, when you just look at that alone, so you're going to give him more than double the work because SmackDown's only 2 hours, Raw's 3 hours. He's going to have help, obviously. Again, with the pandemic going on, are we surprised that the writing teams would consolidate and become just one group again? We see that all the time with brand splits and everything else. They don't ever last long. So this shouldn't really come as a surprise. At the same time, I'm more worried about the Bruce Pritchard podcast, Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard. Obviously, we were listening to that earlier this week. And if you listen to the Bruce, I'm getting caught up with the podcast because I've been at home. I usually will listen to it in the car and stuff, so I haven't been listening to it as much. But when you think about all the phone calls and all the pauses they were taking during the show, I'm around the right around WrestleMania, right when the pandemic was kind of going on and a lot of stuff was changing for WWE. You're hearing all the constant phone calls. They're leaving all that stuff in on the podcast. And he's already sounds busy, tired, getting very few out. He's only getting 3-4 hours of sleep. Seems like he's barely remembering what day it is sometimes. Not saying this is a bad thing. I'm sure he's playing it up a little bit for the podcast, but still, I mean, the man's busy. So to give him a 3-hour show on top, it'll be interesting to see what role Bruce has and how long he'll last in charge of both shows. And again, I'm more worried about the podcast. Is this finally going to be the end of the podcast? Because I thought we were going to see the end of the podcast when he took over SmackDown. So now that he's going to be in charge and have a bigger role, who knows what will happen. But we'll see. There's a lot on Bruce Pritchard's plate right now.
Speaking of the 3-hour show, let's discuss, I believe this is going to be Paul Heyman's last Monday Night Raw, unless they still have another one taped for Monday, but I'm not really sure how the schedule has been looking like. So we're going to talk about Raw. Asuka opened up the show as she was advertised to face Charlotte Flair, obviously, who lost the NXT title at In Your House. However, she was quickly interrupted by the new WWE Tag Team Champions, Sasha Banks and Bayley. My favorite, Bayley. She's been killing it. I don't know if we talked about it last week because I think we were already recording before that. But yeah, Sasha and Bayley defeated Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss to win those titles. And it was announced that this Sunday it would be Bayley and Sasha defending against the Iconics and Alexa and Nikki in a triple threat tag team match. So Flair interrupted and they kind of had a few back and forth. It ultimately led to the Iconics also interrupted. It led to a triple threat tag team match between Charlotte and Asuka taking on the Iconics and Bayley and Sasha. Fun match. Asuka ended up tapping out Billy Kay, to the Asuka lock. After the match, Flair laid out Asuka. So she's already quickly moving on to the Raw Women's Champion. Yeah, I don't know what they're doing.
It's just kind of, when you think about it, it's like, really, don't rush right into it. I mean, it's good to have, but it's kind of like, you gotta give Asuka a run. Let her have some other people. Let her go against some other, let her have a run where you know she's gonna beat some people. Where she, build her up a little bit more, build her as a champion. Let her have some matches. She's gonna, kind of like they're doing with Drew McIntyre. They're putting him in the ring against people more or less he's gonna win. If you put it right in there against Charlotte so early, it's like, geez, give it a minute.
Yeah. So then Seth Rollins, my Lord and Savior, whose theme song is now available in every music platform. It's going to be in my ringtone in just a little bit.
Oh, Lord.
Seth Rollins came out to the ring to talk to Rey Mysterio, who was being interviewed. Ultimately, Mysterio and his son Dominic will be on next week's episode of Monday Night Raw. Then Aleister Black jumped into frame in a very very fun moment, attacking Seth Rollins, which led to a tag team match between Humberto Carrillo and Aleister Black taking on Austin Theory and Murphy. It was really quick. Aleister Black ended up defeating Murphy and then was attacked after Rollins hit the stomp on Aleister. And we're going to see what happens next week with Mysterio and Rollins and so on. Next up, we had The Peep Show. Christian interviewed Edge. I thought this was a great segment. Christian kind of was really, really trying to get on Edge's nerves in a sense, to try and get motivated for what is being advertised as the greatest wrestling match ever. It's the greatest wrestling match ever. Have you seen Edge on Twitter?
Why they haven't had it? Yes, I've seen all the tweets, and they're really, they're going with it. And I'm sure they may not be entirely all for it. We'll find that out later down the road. But I mean, I talked about it last week, but again, it's kind of like you have Edge. Edge has only had still just the one WrestleMania match, and then the Rumble.
Yeah,
it's kind of like we're gonna throw him in there again, and we're gonna hype it up to be that The greatest wrestling match ever on his third match back.
Yeah, that's gonna be it.
I mean,
Just like this week, he's had the greatest coffee ever. He's had the greatest playlist ever. Everyone go follow Edge on Twitter because even Randy Orton tweeted out. He's like, he did something earlier today about he doesn't know if it's going to be the greatest match ever, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. Randy's being a little realistic, I think. No, but I'm just saying it's like we really haven't had a one-on-one in the ring, straightforward singles match that with Edge, and we're already going to call it the greatest match ever. Like, the first two matches were gimmicky. I'm sure Edge can do it, but
I have full faith.
I do too, but I mean, if we're going to call it the greatest wrestling match ever, do we know what the standard is for the greatest wrestling match ever? It's kind of high.
Well, we don't know. And
Undertaker, Shawn,
it's very
either one, Brett and Steve.
It's very subjective.
Whatever.
All right, we're going to move on because I don't know what you're doing over there. We're just
waving my fist at you.
We're turning off the camera here.
I'm getting heated over here.
We still have time, right? 4 minutes. We got the 4 horsemen, Rob. Is that what you're saying? All right. So we'll finish
Unbelievable.
We'll finish up Raw real quick. The Street Profits and Viking Raiders participated in a decathlon, which was hilarious. These two teams honestly don't need to fight anymore. They just need to be friends because that's what
I feel like they already are friends.
That's what they are. Yeah, they just need to. They don't need to compete for the tag titles. Is what I'm saying. They don't need to have a match because that's obviously where it's going to lead to. But they seemed very supportive with one another. Ultimately, it ended up in a 5-5 tie, and we would see them later on in the evening. Let's see. MVP also ran into R-Truth backstage. Lashley laid him out with the full Nelson.
Did we mention the Gronk R-Truth?
Yeah, R-Truth title, I think.
Yeah, but I don't know if we talked about it. Where I mean, it doesn't have to be long, but I'm just saying, just address it and the fact that we
we didn't need to talk about Gronk.
No, but I'm just saying the fact that we did get Gronk back on WWE TV. Obviously, they had to get that done.
We did talk about it, actually. I do remember because we talked
about the promo.
We talked about how he lost.
No.
He got rolled up by a social media guy. Or the social media guy was distracting him, whatever.
Anyways, go ahead. Just wanted to make sure it was on the record.
Number 1 contenders match between Andrade, Angel Garza, and Kevin Owens. Andrade ended up picking up the victory, and we're going to see that match happen this Sunday. I lost my Raw results, so we're just going to go to the end.
This was for the U.S. title. Number 1 contender, right?
Yeah.
Not for the, okay.
Then we got to Street Profits joining the corner of the Viking Raiders, who took on MVP and Bobby Lashley. Lashley laid out Viking Raiders with full Nelson, won the match for his team, and McIntyre made the save. Lashley took a Claymore, but he was able to stand tall still after. So that match is happening. They made both guys look strong, which is probably the best way to go about it. So that's neat. Something I don't think we mentioned was that MVP is now an on-screen talent. He was originally brought back as a producer, and they brought him, selectively for on-screen. But I think now he's full-time on-screen talent. So that's good for him.
Yeah, I mean, and that would make sense too when you think, because I think what they had planned for him was more of an agent role anyways, I think when he was first brought on or something along those lines. But now that you start seeing some of the booking stuff and what they're doing as far as consolidating a lot of different stuff, as we talked about earlier, I think it makes sense that we would see more of MVP on camera, which I think is where he belongs anyways.
Main event time. Asuka took on Charlotte Flair in a stellar match. They gave this match a lot of time. Of course, it was ruined by Nia Jax, who came out and distracted Asuka. Charlotte ended up pinning Asuka to get the victory. They're really harkening on the fact that Asuka has yet to defeat Charlotte. So I would assume Charlotte's going to lose to Asuka when they do face off for the titles.
But again, I mean, okay, stopping you again. Let's look at Raw and what we just said earlier about how they fire Paul Heyman, whatever. Look how many times they use Asuka and Charlotte. Let alone they're using how many times they use Charlotte throughout the week. But how many matches did Asuka and Charlotte have? What is it, the second match?
This is like the third or fourth.
No, I'm on just Raw. On this last Raw.
On Raw, this is only the first match on Raw.
Didn't they have a tag match, you said?
Well, they had a tag match together. I'm talking about one-on-one.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. This is twice.
How they used Charlotte. Well, they used Asuka too, to be fair.
But this is the point I'm making. They're trying to fill a 3-hour show by having the same people go out there in multiple segments, multiple matches. They're like, that's how thin things are right now.
Well, to be fair, they're not using everyone, which they should be, because
they should.
Liv Morgan is still trying to figure out who she is. Ricochet and Cedric somehow fell off the face of the earth, and
did you see Shelton? Did you see Shelton's tweet on if you want to see the good talent match, good talent and good matches, head on over to the main event show and you'll see Shelton and Tozawa and Cedric. So.
Yeah, and Shayna is nowhere to be found either. So
that's correct.
Unfortunately. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. But when we return, we're going to give our Backlash predictions, as well as all three of us are going to name our favorite or top 5 Intercontinental Champions in history. All that and more right here on Beyond the Ropes. And we're back with Beyond the Ropes, episode 116. I'm Ethan.
I'm James.
I'm Rob.
And you can follow me at EthanHenry95. You can follow James at
JHW Reporter.
And you can follow Rob at
Rob Flores Media.
And you can follow all of us collectively at Real BTR Radio. You can also follow us and give us a like on our Facebook page, facebook.com/Beyond the Ropes. And YouTube, just search up Beyond the Ropes. All right, guys. Who are the top 5 greatest Intercontinental Champions of all time?
All right, boys. I will go first.
You're going to go first? Overruled. You're not going first. Now you can go ahead and go first.
Go ahead. That's fine.
No, I'm not going. You go first. Go ahead. I'm serious. Go. Change. You're first.
Okay. So this was kind of tough, and I actually had a list of 5 before I decided to scrap the whole list because I felt it wasn't actually doing justice. So the top 5 I came up with is The Miz. The Miz actually has 8 title reigns. I believe that's probably the most all time. If not, it's up there. The Honky Tonk Man, who had the longest Intercontinental title reign. He in my personal top 5, Honky Tonk Man wouldn't be in there. But when you have a reign that long, and the company obviously likes what you're doing, I mean, you can't knock it. And his one title reign is longer than some of the people who have had it 4 or 5 times, including Triple H, who's also on the list. He's actually he's on the list with The Rock. One for me because of the ladder match they had at SummerSlam in 98 or 99, I believe. Their Intercontinental title feud with the ladder match was one that I remember from when I was younger. Rock only had the title twice, but I remember the runs that he had. I think during the Nation of Domination is when he first had the title. I remember that purple belt. Triple H had it 5 times, and it was only Triple H may have only had it for like 100 days between the 5 title runs. Again, that talks about how long that run was for the Honky Tonk Man. I also have Ziggler on the list with 6 titles, 6 Intercontinental title runs, and then Razor Ramon with 4. And you can't forget the run he had, or the Intercontinental title match he had with Shawn Michaels in that ladder match. Shawn Michaels is just outside the list because he's not, I wouldn't say known for his Intercontinental title runs, but more so his his WWE World Title, Heavyweight Title runs. I will say who else was on my list. Who else was just outside of my list, just in case any of them are on your guys' list. Go ahead.
Rob?
I got Benoit.
Okay.
Jericho.
He has the most medals.
Jericho should have been on my list. I don't know why. He was on my original list, but with 9. So he's the overall.
Razor, you
Yeah,
said?
Razor.
Mhm.
Mr. Perfect.
Oh, yeah.
And today's generation, Shelton Benjamin.
Okay.
I like that.
All right. Now we're going to get to my list. I have Dolph Ziggler on the list, as James mentioned, a 6-time IC champion. For the last 10 years, he's been kind of around the title in a famous match against The Miz, which his career was on the line at, I believe it was like No Mercy 2016 or 2017.
Yeah.
Memorable match. I believe I saw him compete for the IC title at SummerSlam at one point. So there's that as well. But I have Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy, multiple IC champion as well. He defeated Triple H to win his first title in 2001. So it was on SmackDown. Another iconic moment for the IC title. Macho Man. Talk about the famous Ricky Steamboat match.
That's right. Yes.
Title. It was arguably, I think many people will say, it was the best match of the card. So,
Dare we say the greatest match ever?
it was a good match.
Some people would say it's the greatest match ever.
Some people maybe. Then I have Shawn Michaels. He I believe was injured or suspended at that time, where Razor won the title, and then they competed.
Yeah. He was suspended.
I don't remember what it was. So yeah,
I think he was suspended.
He was suspended. And then they had the famous ladder match at WrestleMania 10, which made the ladder match famous. And obviously, the iconic moment where Razor stands tall with both titles. But I'd say Shawn Michaels really rose to stardom when he was champion with Sensational Sherry in his corner, which I had her on my list last week for greatest female competitor of all time. And my top Intercontinental Champion, he has 8 title reigns. He's likely going to surpass Jericho with the most title reigns ever. I'm talking about The Miz. He, I believe, is 20 days away from being the all-time longest reigning IC champion with collective title reigns. I believe Pedro Morales is first, and then Miz is right behind him. So one more title reign, and he ties to become the longest reigning, and then potentially becomes, he ties to become the most title reign holder, and could become the longest reigning ever. So those are my top 5. There are a number of great IC champions, but I think those guys, as well as some of the guys you mentioned, obviously, you guys mentioned, are arguably some of the greatest IC champions of all time.
Yep. I agree.
Backlash is happening this Sunday on the WWE Network, which you can watch for free, by the way. Well, actually, you can't watch Backlash for free, but you can get the network for free and get some shows for free. Let's go through the card, and then we'll give our predictions. So for the United States Championship, Apollo Crews will defend against Andrade. What do we have here?
I think you have to go with Apollo just to keep that momentum going. But I can also see Andrade winning if the stable can kind of come together. But I think we might see some tension there continue with Zelina's stable, and that might actually cost Andrade the title here, or a chance at picking that title back up. So,
Rob?
Apollo.
Yeah, I've got Apollo, I think, on this one as well. I think, I don't know. Well, yeah, I would say he's going to hold it for a little bit.
He better.
We'll see. You never know. Next up, for the WWE Women's Championship, Bayley and Sasha Banks, the new champions, will defend against Alexa Bliss, Nikki Cross, versus the Iconics. Who do you have here, James?
I would want to say the Iconics, but we know that's not going to happen. I don't know what they're going to do with Nikki Cross and Alexa. You know, maybe they keep them in the title. But I don't know. Maybe we see something screwy there. But I think if you're going to put the titles on Bayley and Sasha, I think you got to let them run with it. I thought it was very interesting how they reenacted. Did you see the photo shoot where they did the on the ground crying thing? Because that's when they had lost the title. Maybe, who knows, maybe this is a turning point for Sasha. Even when she came back from that break, she still really hasn't done anything. So maybe this kind of helps a little bit giving her a title. But I don't know. Maybe we need to see something of that Bayley-Sasha clash at some point. So who knows? And we need to see something. So I don't know. This one's up in the air, but I'll go with Sasha and Bayley to retain.
Rob?
Same.
I've got the Iconics winning here.
Wow. Why is that? Just be different?
So you mentioned that there's probably going to build something with Bayley and Sasha. They teased it last week, and when they won the titles, actually, when Bayley tagged.
They've been teasing it for a while, actually, but
they have, but especially last week, Bayley tagged herself in after Sasha was in control, and nearly cost them the victory. Obviously, they did end up winning, but I think there's going to be a little more tension. They did lose on Monday, but there really wasn't any tension there. They just lost. They weren't involved in the loss, actually, but I think since the Iconics took the pin on Monday, maybe they'll sneak one in and get the victory here.
I can see that.
Something we do need to mention is that the NXT title, or the women's titles, the tag titles, will be defended on the upcoming NXT episode happening next week against Tegan Nox and Shotzi Blackheart. So nice to see those titles on NXT. Yeah, be an interesting.
Which makes me believe that it's not going to be Sasha and Bayley.
Oh, are you going to switch now?
Maybe. Now that I think about it. I'll go with it. I'll stay with what I have. But now that you kind of throw that NXT wrinkle in there, part of me thinks they don't have Bayley and Sasha. Maybe, you know what? I'm going to stick with my prediction, and I think Bayley and Sasha do go to NXT because, one, they're Charlotte's moving on, so you got to have a little bit of that star power back there. I can see them going back. It'd be nice to see them back on NXT. And also, you got Bayley with her 2 belts gimmick now, kind of like how Bayley was and whatnot. So I can kind of see him being back on NXT. I'm going to stick with what I have.
It's Bayley, those straps.
Those straps. Pardon my ignorance.
Rob, you're sticking with Bayley and Sasha?
Okay, they have a title shot, Shotzi in them?
Shotzi and Tegan, yes, will compete for the women's tag team titles on NXT.
Because they're trying to get it on every show.
It would be very interesting if all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're switching the card around for the pay-per-view or whatever.
Yeah. Well, it's after the pay-per-view, right?
Yes, it's happening next Wednesday.
So whoever wins the pay-per-view match is going to go on NXT and have their first title defense against the NXT duo. Yeah. So I think it's still going to be Bayley and Sasha. Rob, would say you.
So Shotzi wins it after?
Do you think that's going to happen?
Who do you think is going to win the pay-per-view match? Who do you think is going to defend the titles at NXT against Nox and Chauncey?
Sasha and Bayley will retain.
Okay. So you're sticking with the prediction. Okay.
I'm going to say whoever walks out Backlash will retain at NXT as well. I'll say that.
Bold prediction. I mean, that's fine. That makes sense.
Well, at NXT, though, it'll be a title switch probably.
You think?
But, okay, wait. So are these SmackDown tag team titles, or is it because they go on all the shows, right?
Yeah, they go on any show they want, yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't rule it out.
I wouldn't be opposed to them winning the title, but just don't see it.
I wouldn't rule out an NXT, them winning the titles on NXT, but then that's almost a call-up. They're almost on every show. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen, but I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah. Shotzi is already on every show, by the way, being in the crowd.
Oh, I was like, where are you going with this? Okay.
All right. So you guys have Sasha and Bayley, and I've got Iconics. Okay. Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus.
The intense feud.
It's pretty intense. It was.
That's what I mean. That's what it was being built up as, and I was like, oh, okay.
It wasn't. A
Yeah, I mean, what they did, like, yeah, they were, yeah. I'll go with Jeff Hardy just because he's. I mean, they both just came back, so I'll go with Jeff Hardy.
Rob.
Sheamus.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Sheamus here.
Does he still say, "Are you not entertained"? Does he still do that?
I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he can't ask anybody if there's no crowd, right?
You can ask the performance.
I mean, he can ask them, but yeah. But I mean,
yeah.
But what are they going to say? No.
No, they're very gimmicky.
Yeah, they're very pro. I don't know.
All right. Asuka defends the Raw Women's Championship against Nia Jax. I've got Asuka retaining here.
Yeah, she needs to retain. Unless she busts Asuka in the nose and just pins her.
Oh no!
And goes off script.
Asuka is like the best person on social media. Have you seen her tweets?
I have. I'm just saying. Now I might go off script. No, I'm kidding. She might not. But no, I think Asuka wins. This goes back to what I said earlier. They gotta, she has to beat people, especially if they're trying to throw Charlotte back in that mix.
Yeah, Asuka's gonna win. Rob?
Didn't Nia have some kind of thing where they thought she wasn't a safe worker a while back?
Yeah, they continue to say that every week.
Yeah, we've talked about it, Rob. Come on.
I mean, if they give it to her, it'll kind of say they trust her. So
I don't think.
I mean, I think they do. They put her back. They put her on camera every week. They're not sending her down or having her go to NXT or anything. So
yeah,
they're okay with it. I mean, they kind of want someone to be like a. I mean, I was almost gonna say like a Brock Lesnar, but they want it to be. It's not like, well, I mean, you don't want her to hurt anybody, but if she's gonna bust someone in the nose, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I think so. As long as she's not killing anybody, that's the thing.
I think it would be great for the title to change.
I think it's too soon though.
Soon, and they're building Asuka Charlotte. Yeah,
they're gonna have to have an Asuka Charlotte. I don't know what pay-per-view that would be at though. SummerSlam, I guess.
Probably.
Yeah.
Why not? 2-on-1 handicap match for the Universal Championship. So on last week's SmackDown, by the time this goes on the air, it'll be already this week's SmackDown. But we're talking about last week when The Miz and John Morrison were actually pulling pranks on Braun Strowman.
Ah, yes.
Including
destroying the windshield of his car. They messed with his protein shake where it exploded in his face. And they dropped a whole bunch of slime, which ended up with Braxton, which is hilarious. And so they kind of did a Punk episode last week.
Yeah.
He ended up flipping over the van that they were in, pulling these pranks. So that's kind of the gist of their feud so far. Who do you have here?
I think they keep it on Braun here, but I think it'll be an entertaining match with those two. I'm curious to see what kind of spots Morrison will come up with during this match. So,
Rob?
Miz and Morrison.
I wish, but
it's for the title.
Yeah, Braun's gonna win.
Yeah, I mean,
I would love to see Miz and Morrison win those titles, win that title.
Yeah, it'd be kind of. I mean, it'd be interesting. I mean, I'd like to see Morrison with the title. That'd be kind of cool. He hasn't had a heavyweight title since ECW.
Yeah, he's never been a WWE World title holder, so it would be nice to see. And Miz only has that one title reign, so
yeah,
both guys are due for one. So next up for the WWE Championship, Bobby Lashley challenges for Drew McIntyre's title. James, who do you have here?
I think you gave it to Drew. You continue to build up Drew. Hopefully, we can get a good showing out of Bobby Lashley and continue to see him be a player down the road. As MVP has said over and over again, it's been over a decade since Bobby Lashley has had a title shot or whatever. But if you're going to build up Lashley like this, continue to do so after. Make him a dominant guy. Don't just do it and then just forget about him right after the pay-per-view. So we'll see what happens. But I think Bobby Lashley will lose this one. Maybe MVP gets involved. I'm not completely ruling Lashley out of winning the title just because of any shenanigans. Actually, you know what? I'm going for sure. 100% Drew's going to win. I'm curious to see what Lana's going to do in all this.
Mm-hmm.
Can't forget about Lana.
Rob?
Drew?
Yeah, Drew McIntyre is going to retain here.
You think Lana gets involved? What are your predictions on what happens with Lana?
I definitely think she probably will accidentally cost Lashley here.
And then we see a divorce angle?
Hopefully, because I'm over it. Well, I'm sure everyone else is.
I don't think anyone was ever for it.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All right. And the main event, the greatest wrestling match ever, Randy Orton versus Edge in a singles match, one-on-one. They're going to go 5 hours. They're going to pull it off. It's going to be the longest wrestling match ever. It's going to be the most iconic one ever. It's going to be great. James, who do you have here?
You know this is Backlash, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to have that spectacular of a match.
This is the same pay-per-view where Mick Foley and Randy Orton had their iconic hardcore match. This is the same pay-per-view where Edge and Cena had an iconic last man standing match. This is the same pay-per-view that had God and Shawn Michaels take on the McMahons. This is, I could go on and on.
All right, fair points. But with there not being much of a crowd, I don't see how this can be the greatest wrestling match ever. So, whatever, gimmick aside, I think I want to say Randy's going to take it just to get a win back. But I want to see a clean singles win, no gimmicks for Edge. So I'll go with Randy, though. I'll go with Randy.
Rob?
Yeah, there's probably going to have to be a controversial. I would rather it be like nobody won at all. Something controversial that they had to stop.
I can see that.
I've got Edge here. So, and I believe we are out of time. So, see you next week for another new episode, as we will discuss Backlash and all the fallout from there. But until next time, this has been episode 116 of Beyond the Ropes, and this episode has been Too Sweet and In Your House. There you go.
In your house, on your phone, and in your living room.